Hello, in this video I'm going to go over some possible gear sets that you should look into farming in case you don't have them collected in your sticker book because of the new mythic that is in the game. I'm going to go over that right now. And the new mythic is the Shattered Paths Signet, and this is focused around status effects. So when you get up to maximum of 170 ultimate, then your damage to status effects goes up to 170%. And then once you sustain having more than 170, then your light attacks and heavy attacks apply random status effects. And then you also are applied with a debuff of Minor Timidity, which it's basically the reverse of Minor Heroism. This consumes 1.5 ultimate per second. Or excuse me, 1 ultimate per every 1.5 second. So basically, the set that there's a couple of sets that I'm going to talk about. First off, we're just going to go over the if you're going to use the Signet Mythic, then that means you're probably going to be taking off the Velothi Ur-Mage's Amulet. And so there's a couple of things you're going to need to do in order to kind of counterbalance the power of this mythic right here. The Velothi Mythic is very, very strong. What it does is it negates the necessity to sustain your light attacks and traditional weaving, because essentially the damage that you get out of the light attacks is basically eliminated. Essentially, the only thing you're doing a light attack for really is to keep your ultimate generation up. Maybe some timing or something like that, but other than that, the ultimate regeneration, you have to light attack once every 9 seconds. And so like on beam builds, this is the reason why you have to do that. But with this mythic, that reduces the light attack damage down by 99%, but it also increases your damage done to monsters by 15%. And so this also gives you minor force at all times, and it gives you quite a bit of penetration. And so what I'm going to talk about here is you may have to switch to maces, for example, for your front bar to cover that penetration. And how you can figure that out is you go to dual wield here, go to the very bottom passive here called Twin Blade and Blunt. And if you look, each mace will give you 1487 penetration. So it's not a complete apples for apples pass over there. There is a little bit left to be obtained. However, if you switch one of your front bar daggers to a mace, that will compensate for that loss of penetration. The other thing that you have to compensate for is minor force not being present at all times. So you're going to need to run something like Barbed Trap or something else that provides you minor force. Perhaps you get it from a scribe skill or something like that. But that's another thing that you're going to want to consider putting in your build if you're going to run the Shattered Paths Signet. So now let's talk about the sets. Currently, I am running and testing out the Spattering Disjunction set out of Infinite Archive. And the reason why I'm trying this out, this has not been updated yet, but in update 50, they are doing an increase to the class sets from Infinite Archive. And this is going to get a new, basically a makeover. And this is going to provide you with a Crux as well as what it currently does here. I believe they're changing how often this occurs as well. I don't remember off the top of my head what the specific change is coming, and they're also not finished with PTS, so they could make some changes when it does go live, so keep that in mind. But I would highly recommend, if you've not farmed this set out of the Infinite Archive, you've got a couple of weeks here before update 50 goes live. Go in there, do some runs, especially if you're sick of the night market, or maybe you haven't gone in there much at all. Who knows? But I've got a video on how to farm that. I will link that in the description in case that can be helpful. I'll link that in there. That's my method of farming gear sets and all that out of the archive. But another set that I'm going to call out and kind of draw focus and attention to is from Frostvault. And why this is going to be important is this set gives you, it's the Tzogvin's Warband, and what this does is it gives you a lot of critical chance and a line of penetration, and then when you get your stacks up to 10 on this, then it provides you with minor force. So if you're going to run this set, then you don't have to worry about minor force. And as you can see, there's also a line of penetration. That is the blue value. So I'll just run over here to the transmute station and we'll show you what the full penetration of that looks like when you gold the set out. So we'll go to Frostvault, we'll go down to Tzogvin's, and we'll just make it gold here like this and scroll down. And as you can see, 1435. So there's only about 200 penetration or so left if you're trying to compensate for that Velothi being gone. So that's a nice thing to have there. Very important stat to pay attention to is penetration. That can increase your group's damage quite a bit if you guys pay attention to group penetration overall and make sure that's handled. Why this is a strong set. This is a very high amount of critical chance when you get this up to 10 stacks. So I'll do a little bit of math on the calculator here. The first two, put this back into gold value here. The first two lines of critical chance, that's a standard line there, and those are basically 3%. So we're going to figure out the fifth kicker there. So if you get 10 stacks, that'll be 1,770 critical chance. And all you have to do to figure out what that is in percentage, you'll have to divide it by 219, which is 8.08%. So if you add the other 6% from the 2 and 3 piece, then that gives you 14% critical chance from this set. So why is that important? Critical chance is the strongest DPS category that you can get on a build because that controls how often you critically strike on your build. And why is that important? Because if you critically strike, that adds whatever this damage modifier is to the damage that you're doing, and there is a cap on that of a 125%. And they put a cap on that because it is so powerful. So if you want to make that occur more often, then you need to pay attention to this number right here, the spell critical and weapon critical. Anytime you can get this, I would say up and over 50%, try to get it up into the 65% range on your build. You're going to have a really strong build if you're building with correct sets and skill lines and whatnot. This is really, really important to pay attention to. So with that information, that's another set that I'm going to recommend that you farm is from Frostvault. Now, this is really good for on beam builds because all you have to do is do critical damage, and then you get more critical chance. And the more critical chance you get, the more often that's going to happen. So it's going to sustain itself really easy. And this is not tied to a light attack, for example, the set out of Hellraw Citadel, Berserking Warrior. This is the highest critical chance set in the game. However, in order to do this, you have to deal martial melee damage, which is essentially light attacking, and you have to do that pretty much every 5 seconds or so. And that's really hard to sustain on a beam build because we'll just put this on the jewelry because that's probably where you're going to build it. So as you can see, Berserking Warrior, there we go. 288 stacks up to 5 times, and then it's got a ton of passive critical chance. Just keep in mind this is a heavy set, so you'll have to wear it on the jewelry and the weapons if you're going to run this on a build. But this is super strong, 298 per stack. So almost 300 per stack times 5. So that'd be 1,500 roughly, just under 1,500. And then all the critical chance there. That's another good set, but if you're on a beam build, I would not recommend running this. So I'm going to talk about one more set before I close out the video, and it's probably a little bit less paid attention to. Typically, Highland Sentinel and Order's Wrath get a lot of focus and adoration, but they are nerfing the statistic of damage done to monsters, which is what the Tideborn set is kind of focused on. And so this is this is essentially getting a nerf because they're nerfing that category. It's still going to be a pretty strong set, but it's just not going to do as well as it did, especially if you're stacking into that category with the Velothi Mythic, for example. So if you're going to continue to wear the Velothi Mythic and it has that 15% increased damage done to monsters, this may not be a good choice. You might find something else that outperforms it. I'm going to show you a set right now that performs really well on the Arcanist, and that is the Claw of the Forest Wraith. And why this is important and very strong is because it gives you critical chance pretty much regardless of what you're doing. There's no mini game to it. So if you're not aware of where this came from, this dropped when Galen came out, and as you can see, it gives 2 lines of critical chance from the 2 and the 4 piece bonus with a line of weapon damage, and then the bottom line there gives a ton. When you gold this out, I believe it's really close to 2,100. I don't have a piece built, unfortunately, on me. But it is close to 2,100 critical chance. Yeah, I don't have any of this built on me, unfortunately, right now, so I can't show the golded out value. But I think if I go here to Galen, it will actually show that. I just have to find... There it is. So this on the map shows it. Thankfully, this add-on for map pins or whatever, whichever one it is, shows this. So you get 2,037 critical chance. If you don't have the attuned tables or your guild hall doesn't have it, they're located right here. I would recommend if you're wanting to do this and get the tables or even just build it on site here, use the home tours trick that I've shown in the past. I'll link a video on what I did for that. The Gladestone Arboretum. You can just look this up in home tours, port to it, walk out the front door, and you can walk right over to these tables here and either attune your own or build the set right here on site. This is really strong. It's a craftable set, so you can basically choose whatever weight and configuration you want on it. But this gives a ton of critical chance. So why is that important? Well, one of the highest, I'll say, parsing setups that is in the game usually uses the Highland Sentinel setup. And so why that is effective, we'll go into the Westweald. So here are the numbers for Highland Sentinel. Again, if you don't have this set, this is where that set is located in Westweald, the western half here. You'll just want to travel to the Centurion's Watch Way Shrine and just go northwest of there, and you'll find the forge there to make the setup. However, to go over this set at maximum stats, we'll just do the 443 times 3 plus now the rest of these are just static, they're always on. 986 plus 657 plus 657 plus 657, and we'll divide that by 219, and this is 19.5%. So there's a difference of about 5% between this and Claw of the Forest Wraith. However, I will tell you that if you take off we'll just take off that stacking thing, because if you move while you're using this, you don't get to retain those stacks. So we'll go back to 4286, which was the total, and we'll take out the 443 stacks, and that gives you 2957, and we'll figure out what that is. That's 1350. So if you're not going to maintain your stacks on this, Claw of the Forest Wraith actually outperforms it with absolutely no game at all. You don't have to worry about moving or whatever. So I would recommend checking out Claw of the Forest Wraith, especially for mobile fights. Just go through the bosses here. I like to use the Wizard's Wardrobe to go through bosses, because it's really easy to, for example, Ethereal Archive. Those are pretty stationary fights. Poison fight in Sanctum Ophidia, those are a little bit more mobile. Hellraw Citadel, you got to move around a little bit on some of those. Maw of Lorcage, there's quite a bit of movement, especially with the twins fight. You got to run around with curses and everything. There's a lot of mobile fights in the game. Not a lot of them are stationary. Sunspire is probably the exception to that rule, although you still do have to move around when there is a mechanic going on. And so there's not really a whole lot of stand there and parse situations in a lot of these trials. So I would say for the most part, Highland Sentinel in content is probably not going to do as well. I would recommend going and looking into the Claw of the Forest Wraith craftable set. I think that would be a really good benefit, and I think you'll be surprised at how well it performs. Again, without any mini game involved at all, it does perform very well. So keep an eye on that. See if it's something you want to build. Check it out. I think it'll really help. But again, I want to just reiterate: you may need to switch to one dagger, one mace, or find another set that's got a line of penetration to compensate for that loss of penetration, and then make sure you have minor force on your build if you're going to implement the new Shattered Paths Signet. Might be a good time to focus on trying to get minor heroism in your group to kind of counteract that minor timidity as well, to keep your ultimate generation going. But I'm going to end the video here. But before I do, I'm going to say please check out the description for any of the videos I've mentioned in the discussion here. I will put links to those if you are interested, so you can just click on those and find out what I said in those videos without having to do a deep dive in this one. But thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in another video. Bye.